But the AutoPen probe is just beginning. Attorney General Pam Bondi is on the case. House Oversight Committee Chairman James Comer joins me now. So you've been looking at this now for a better part of a year. Are you narrowing, is your committee narrowing down to a number of suspects who you think are singularly responsible for this, and what kind of punishment are they facing?
Well, look, if they were operating as President of the United States, if they were forging the President of the United States' signature on pardons and executive orders and other legal documents, then I think those are pretty serious crimes. The Oversight Committee, we investigate. Once we conclude an investigation, we publish a report and we make referrals and recommendations based on the overwhelming evidence that we accumulated in the form of emails, in the form of notes and documents from National Archives, and in the form of hours and hours of depositions. We concluded that there was a massive cover-up of Joe Biden's cognitive decline. The staffers knew it. That's why they discussed whether or not to give him a cognitive test and then ultimately declined against it. That's why Dr. O'Connor pled the Fifth Amendment to avoid self-incrimination. But even further, there's no evidence that Joe Biden was ever involved in any of the decision-making. And normally when you have meetings and discussions on things like pardons and other high-profile events that would be presidential level, you would have notes, you would have meetings, right. There would be emails, there would be things in the schedule for meetings. Nothing pertaining to Joe Biden. We gave every staffer, the 12 staffers that we brought in for depositions were the ones that we knew had the influence over the auto pen. They all were inconsistent in the process. The emails were even contradict what the deposition said. And at the end of the day, I think we've gotten as much information as we can get to determine what we've determined. Now we've handed it over to Pam Bondi, right. And we've made notes to the Attorney General. If there's further things that we can do as a committee, we'll do them. But we're going to wait for guidance from her. This is a serious issue, and all those pardons should be declared null and void.
Yeah. So let me ask you this, going back to the process about how this happened. From my understanding of reading your report, many of the pardons were issued based on memos that were signed JB for Joe Biden. Was there anybody else in the White House with the initials JB that you think might have signed some of those memos?
Well, think about this. What they're trying to say on the memos for the auto pen is that some staffer would type up a memo, then hand the memo to Joe Biden. The memo would say that someone would have the authority to sign Joe Biden's name. Joe Biden would read that memo and say, okay, and then initial his initials on it and then hand it back to the staffer. And then they would go take that document that just needed one signature that would have taken the same amount of time for him to sign as it would for him to initial, and then use the auto pen. Look, there were emails from the Department of Justice during the Merrick Garland time to the staffers asking if Joe Biden was even involved in the process, warning the staffers of the excessive use of the auto pen. And, again, I think that at that point, the response from the Biden administration was, when they were talking about the use of the auto pen, was Joe Biden was verbally giving them authority to use it. Then they come back and they have these discovery of these memos. I mean, right. Just complete inconsistencies. And that's why we think the Attorney General needs to take it with the full force of the Department of Justice.
Well, maybe I'm crazy, but I do think it's kind of interesting that there was another person in the White House with the initials JB, as in Joe Biden, which I think bears investigation at the very least. James Comer, thank you so much for joining us.
Absolutely.
DHS Secretary Kristi Noem announcing nearly 150 illegal migrants truck drivers were arrested in Indiana during Operation Midway Blitz.
223 illegal aliens have been arrested and taken off of our roads. Of those, 146 of them were drivers. That includes 46 semi-truck drivers and another 82 of them that were either box trucks, buses, moving vans, vehicles such as that. The CDLs that were issued to those individuals were issued from over a dozen different states.
This as Transportation Secretary Sean Duffy announces a federal crackdown on migrant truck drivers.
We are going to go after the CDL mills. that are issuing licenses across the country. We are diving into the companies that hire these drivers that may not have a license, that may not have a lawfully issued license, or do not speak the language.
American Truckers United co-founder Harvey Beach and Shannon Everett join us now. Thanks so much for joining the program, gentlemen.
Happy to be here.
Yes, sir.
So I guess my father's a truck driver. Apparently, this has been an issue for a while. I guess the major question is, how are these folks, individuals, some of them that don't speak English or read English, able to pass these tests?
Yeah, so this has really exploded over the last 5 years, and in what's known as a non-domiciled, the proliferation of a non-domiciled CDL, and also what's known as a B1, B2 border crossing card. And so, you know, there's been an effort across the industry to reduce standards to solve a so-called driver shortage. And in doing so, they relaxed the standards for these driver's licenses to be issued, but only in certain states. You know, one of the things that they found in the sting in Indiana and also the sting in Oklahoma is that all of these drivers are coming from the same regions in the same areas. And so there's a lot of illegal activity going on. And I think that's demonstrated in the fact that not every state's participating in this activity.
So, Harvey, I guess the big question is, have other drivers on the road complained about this? Was there a shortage in truck drivers? I mean, you can make a really great living doing this. I'm sure there's plenty of Americans that want these jobs. Is that the reason why they decide to cut the standards?
There has not been a driver shortage, Lawrence. There is a lack of pay versus the lifestyle that our drivers have to deal with out there. And these guys and ladies, our American truck driver community, they have been complaining about the foreign invasion of their industry and the things that they're having to deal with on a daily basis. I hear it from my drivers in our orientation classes every week.
I want to show this clip, and this is a truck driver that was pulled over in Arkansas. He was unable to speak just basic English. Let's play it.
You understand English? You do? Why did you park here? No, no good. Is there anybody else in the truck? Is there anybody else in the truck?
My company.
Your company. Okay, you don't understand English. What company do you work for?
My company, California.
Your company's called California?
Yeah.
Yeah, you don't understand me.
I guess that's also the next question. Who are these companies? I mean, I can only imagine the insurance premiums to hire someone that really doesn't qualify to drive these vehicles.
That's the great question. And more importantly, who's loading them? You know, so most of these drivers are working for new carriers. People would be amazed. The Americans would be amazed at how many new trucking companies are created each and every month, and who is it that owns these trucking companies. And so most of these non-citizen truck drivers are not working for your generational American-owned trucking companies that everybody knows that's based in their communities with large terminals and the appropriate infrastructure for running a safe American trucking company. They're all going into these hot spots in Illinois and New York and California, Pennsylvania. You know, you heard the secretary identify, 12 different states. And that's because, they have protection in these sanctuary areas. And so the real question I think America needs to start asking in each one of these wrecks is whose freight was on the truck, and why are these shippers not being held responsible for loading people that can't even speak English? And they can't say they don't know, because the guy has to go on the dock, talk to their employees when the truck gets loaded, and get handed a bill of lading. And what we found is that a lot of these shippers now are offering multiple different languages on their check-in screens and with their dock workers. And so it's a huge problem across the industry, and we need accountability for the shippers and brokers.
People die as a result of this. Something has to change real fast. Gentlemen, thanks so much for joining the program this morning. We really appreciate it.
But first, breaking tonight, a terror plot to stage a violent attack over the Halloween weekend in Michigan. And the plan has an apparent ISIS connection. FBI Director Kash Patel says several people have been arrested. Correspondent David Spunt starts us off tonight. Good evening, David.
Shannon, good evening. Scary story. Several people are in custody right now in Michigan being charged on this Halloween night, arrested after the FBI thwarted an alleged terrorist attack with an apparent connection to ISIS. The FBI director announcing the arrest early this morning on social media. Now, here's what we know. Suspects were picked up in both Dearborn and Inkster, Michigan. It's unclear who was arrested or how many. Patel in a statement saying the FBI is constantly on watch to keep Americans safe, adding, through swift action and close coordination with our local partners, a potential act of terror was stopped before it could unfold. The vigilance of this FBI prevented what could have been a tragic attack, and thanks to their dedication, Michigan will have a safe and happy Halloween. Now, our affiliate, Shannon, spotted the FBI in a neighborhood in Dearborn outside Detroit. Dearborn police confirm the Bureau was there conducting activity this morning. The local police department adds that there is currently no threat to public safety. The suspects are expected to appear in court as soon as Monday. And of course, Shannon will follow all the latest developments.
Well, and David, it seems like there's an update as well in the story about in Alabama, a man arrested in connection with threats to religious figures and some other folks.
That's right. Now, we first reported this during the state charges on Wednesday, but now we're told that Jeremy Wayne Shoemaker is facing federal charges. He's been charged with making interstate communications threat. An FBI agent tells federal court that Shoemaker made a series of menacing calls to rabbis, an imam, and a church in at least 4 states. Authorities say weapons and ammunition were found at his home, along with names and addresses of other religious and prominent figures. Shannon.
David Spunt, busy night. Thank you very much.